Have you pretty much given up on the dream of earning a decent living as a full-time artist? Now, if you had, I wouldn't really blame you. A recent survey in the US, it showed that 75% of full-time artists were making less than $10,000 a year, and half of those were making less than $5,000 a year. Now, is that because it's impossible to make a living as an artist? And is that because people don't really care about art? Well, I think the answer is no. I actually know it actually is possible to make a very good living as an artist, and I know that there are a lot of people out there who care deeply about art. So why is it so difficult for most artists to earn a living? Well, I think the main reason is they really don't understand the game they're playing. Now, there's a lot of information out there about art, and there are a ton of university courses about art and art history, but they aren't really preparing artists very well to actually go out and earn a living. Even if we look at the basic question about what is great art, is it a urinal by Marcel Duchamp? Is it a meat dress? Is it a drip painting by Jackson Pollock? Or what about a Grey Wolf by Robert Bateman? Maybe it's the Four Freedoms by Norman Rockwell. Like, what is great art? The first thing you have to understand is that there's no one art world. The art world is made up of a bunch of different little villages. And the term great art is very different depending on which village you're in. Now, the village that I live in is the village of making my living by selling my paintings to people who actually hang them in their houses. That's a very different village than the publicly funded galleries where you see things like Marcel Duchamp's urinal, where you see the meat dress and installations and things like that. So now once we've defined what is great art in our village, then we have the whole other conundrum of how do you actually turn your art into a business? I mean, there's a lot of books and videos and courses out there on business, but there's very little information about the business of being an artist. And that's where I come in. Now, before I go any further, I just want you to listen closely for the next 30 seconds. I know there are a lot of snake oil salesmen out here on the internet that are trying to sell you some get-rich-quick idea or the secret algorithm or their secret kind of plan that is going to allow you to succeed. That's not what this is. Becoming a successful artist is not easy, and it's not going to happen quickly. But what I can tell you is if you really, really want it bad enough, if you have a passion for art, if you have a really good work ethic and you're willing to do whatever it takes, and if you have a willingness and ability and almost a hunger for learning, then earning a successful living as an artist is not only possible, it's very highly probable, and I would say almost certain. So I'm assuming if you're still watching this, you're a little intrigued with what I have to say. And what I'm going to do now is tell you my story. And then I'm going to tell you the story about a young artist that I mentored starting 4 years ago. Her name is Brooke Cormier, who's gone on to phenomenal success. So we're going to go back to my downstairs film studio, and we're going to switch this up a little bit. Okay, so let's tell you a little bit about my story. So I was like many of you. I knew from the time I was a young kid that I just loved to draw and paint. I ended up taking art in high school. I took graphic design in college, and I was going to be the next great illustrator. I came out of college in 1980 in the middle of a recession, and after 2 years of being a starving artist, I realized plan A was not really working very well. It was time for plan B. The Toronto Police Force was hiring. I ended up applying, and in December of 1982, that's the day I was sworn in as a police officer. This is actually my warrant card that I was given that day. That was the day I officially gave up on my dream of becoming an artist. And I just really thought I wasn't talented enough. And I was actually right. If I'd only added the word yet on the end of it, I wasn't talented enough yet. So I ended up having actually a fairly successful career on the Toronto Police Service. I actually enjoyed the job. I liked the job, and I was good at it, and I was making a decent living. And I always had the thought that at some point, maybe I would get back to doing my art. Maybe maybe when I retired. But like I said, I'd kind of given up on that dream and just realized that was for other people who had it. Whatever it was, I just knew I didn't have it. So fast forward about 15 years later, 13 years later, I was married, I had 2 kids. I was painting occasionally. This is kind of going back, kind of the earliest picture we can find of me painting after I joined the police force, and that's around 1995. I was down in the basement with my son Cameron painting. But I would paint, once or twice during the year on my vacations, but it really was a very part-time hobby. Well, then a few things happened that really changed my life. In 1997, a good friend of mine, Billy Hancock, was a police officer. He was murdered on the job. He was a very good friend of mine, and it really, really struck me because I realized, I'm sure Billy had all these things he was going to get to in his life down the road, someday later. One day I'll get to doing those things. And for me, that was art. I knew deep inside I was an artist, but I wasn't really painting. And most of the people around me didn't even know that that was a part of who I was. So I decided that I didn't want to wait until I retired, because what if that day didn't come? And that's actually called mortality motivation, when you kind of have that real realization that you're not going to be here forever. So you better get on to what are the things you really want to get on with your life. So I made a decision and a commitment myself to throw myself back into art. And that's when I discovered this fellow, Harley Brown. I read an article in which he was interviewed where he said that talent was overrated. He said that talent is a myth. Like, people who are born with extraordinary talent are very few and far between. But what's really important is skills. And skills are things that you can learn. And that what we consider to be talent is just the sum total of all your skills, all your knowledge, all your experience, all your creativity. And he said if you were willing to put into it whatever it took, if you were willing to dedicate your life to a art career, he 100% guaranteed that you would succeed. And I thought, you know what? I really don't believe him, but what if he's right? So I decided for 1 year I would live my life as though he was right, and I would really dedicate myself to really improving and mastering the skills involved in creating art. So people often tell me now, you're so lucky you have this gift. Again, that whole myth of the gift. Well, you can see that's my name at the bottom. That's before I developed my current signature. And that's 1997. And that was actually, for me, a good watercolor. That was actually sold at my very first studio open house. So for those of you who think that, people who end up with a lot of skill and what we think of as talent, that they always had it, I can tell you that's not true. I'm pretty sure just about everybody out there watching this video can produce a piece as good or better than this, because this is not good and this is not a gift. But within 2 years, by really, really focusing on developing the skills, this is the type of work that I was then creating. And within 2 years, not only had my skill level gone up dramatically, but I'd actually achieved a lot of things. I'd been elected to the Canadian Society of Painters in Watercolor. I'd been elected a senior signature member of the Canadian Institute of Portrait Artists. I'd won awards in juried shows. I'd been exhibited in international juried shows. And I had a whole host of portrait commissions lined up to do, to the point where my wife actually said to me, we need to talk about not if you leave the police force to paint full-time, but when you leave the police force to paint full-time. And with the start of a new millennium, we thought, what better time could there be? So this is where I was in my life when I made that decision. I was a police officer. I was already a detective in the commercial crime unit out of Toronto Police Headquarters, which was a very, very plum position. I was making a very good living. I had 18 years on the job. I would have had about another 15 to go to get a very solid pension. I had 2 young boys, and I quit my job, cashed in my pension to try and pursue this dream of becoming an artist.
And I did a lot of scary things when I was on the police force. This was the scariest thing I've ever done in my life. So for those of you who are out there thinking, again, that it's going to be an easy, smooth transition from whatever it is you're doing now, the safe thing, making a living, to pursuing your dream, it's not easy, it's not smooth, and it takes an incredible amount of courage to do it. But I can tell you the end result is worth it. So in January of 2000, I officially quit as a police officer and started my new life as a full-time artist. Now at this time, I believed I was going to be a high realism portrait painter. So that's actually, the piece up top is a self-portrait of me, and the other two are examples of commissioned portraits that I did. But what ended up happening over the next couple of years is I was more and more painting pictures of other people's people the way they wanted me to paint them, which was not the dream. And it eventually reached the point where I hated painting portraits. Now that's not a comfortable realization to make when you've quit your job, cashed in your pension to follow your dream, and now you hate your dream. And so what I did is, it's a long story and you can learn more about it with other videos I have. But I decided I was going to paint landscapes. I didn't know how I was going to paint them, but I knew I was not going to paint portraits of the landscape. So that involved a real journey of creativity, of trying to find what I had to say and how I wanted to say it. And so these are watercolors that I did, really focused on negative and positive shapes. I started doing the festival circuit as well as showing in galleries, but realized that watercolors really just didn't travel well. And so I started painting oils. And I started off kind of a little more realistic, a little more representational. And then my work got a little more graphic. And then I was kind of all over the map. I was trying to find my voice. And I knew that the only way I was going to make a successful career of this was trying to find my own unique voice, which was not like anyone else's. And then by 2005, my current style had started to kind of coalesce. This was the first time I actually did a show with a lot of inventory with my new style. Now, up until now, the first 4 years, I think I was limping along, making $16,000, $17,000 a year. The year before this, so in 2004, I almost made $30,000 that year. I did this festival, and in 4 days, I did $28,000 in sales, and the response was overwhelming. And I knew that I'd found my voice. I had discovered a way of painting where I loved the creative process, I loved the work, and the public loved the work, which is what you have to have if you want to have that amazing career. You need to find that. So over the next 10 years, I really just focused on honing that particular style. And had a very, very successful career selling my paintings. I was at one point carried by a large publisher and then started publishing my own work. So my earnings went up from $30,000 to $50,000 to $100,000 to $150,000 just through selling originals and selling giclées of my work. And this was mainly through commercial galleries. And then in 2015, I had an amazing, successful show at a commercial gallery in downtown Toronto. It was like the movie version of an artist's opening. So we were waiting in the gallery to open the doors at 7 o'clock. We could see people lined up down the street. The doors opened, people poured in. There were waiters walking around with glasses of wine. There was someone playing live music, and red dots were going up all over. And at some point in the evening, I realized that for the first time ever, I was going to make over $200,000 that year, because the show was in November, so it was towards the year end. I knew we had had a really good show, but I realized I'm going to make over $200,000 as an artist. Now, that was so far beyond the dream that I had, that it just wasn't even funny. And I vividly remember this moment because I had a weird feeling kind of fall over me. Like I was kind of basking in the glow for a few minutes. And then I had this feeling kind of overcome me. And initially I thought it was kind of guilt, because I thought about all the artists that I knew who had this same dream and how few of them were actually going to be able to achieve it and how few had achieved it. But I realized in hindsight that the feeling that came over me was responsibility. I really felt that I had a responsibility to share what I had learned, because the one thing I knew is I was not special. I was not gifted. I was never even the best kid in any art class that I ever took. I was always around, the 70th percentile. I was probably better than average, but I was not at the top of the class. But through many, many years and thousands of hours of applying myself, I gradually increased my skill to where I was now at the very top of the pinnacle. I was in that kind of 99 point something percentile of artists. But it wasn't because I had some gift, and it wasn't because I was naturally talented. And that feeling of responsibility that I had was to share everything that I'd learned. Because I knew if you had told me when I was 19 years old, here's what you need to do, and you're going to have a very good chance of being successful, I would have done it. The problem was there was no one there to tell me what to do. And I think for most artists out there, there is no one to tell them what to do. It's certainly not the universities and colleges. And so I decided I was going to share everything that I'd learned. So I started my YouTube channel in 2015, and I just started posting videos about things that I'd learned that had helped me succeed as an artist. So I started a vlog, which has over 100 posts. I have a lot of very specific tutorials, one on publishing for artists, one on social media for artists, and just started posting all of this content up there on my YouTube channel. Now, the response that I got from people who actually saw the videos was overwhelmingly positive. But as you know, there's a lot of noise out there. So the channel is still not grown to the point where I'm having the kind of impact that I wanted. But in 2016, I ended up starting a project that I called the Mentorship Project with a young artist by the name of Brooke Cormier. Now, I was really good friends with Brooke's dad. And we golfed together at the same club. And Brooke's situation was that she had just finished taking landscape architecture at the University of Guelph, but she told her parents she didn't want to be a landscape architect. She wanted to be an artist. Now, I had gotten to know her over the previous couple years through her parents, and her dad was explaining this to me on the golf course, and I have to tell you, he was not happy, and he was not happy with me, because he believed, and rightly so, that it was the influence of getting to know me and seeing my career which made her think that this is what she wanted to do. So I said to him, I will mentor her as long as she is willing to have all of our sessions videotaped. And if we do that, then I want them all posted up on my YouTube channel. So that is what we did. So that is how the mentorship program started with me and Brooke. Now, when we first started, for the first 5 months, all I really focused on with her was improving her painting skill, improving her speed of painting, her trying a lot of different genres and really pushing herself, and really focused on composition. Now, the piece right above my head, that's an example of a piece that she did right at the beginning. So I'm going to just duck out of the way for 1 second. The reason I put that up there, that's kind of like the watercolor I showed you of my work. There's nothing in there that says to you, this is a gifted artist. She had a pretty good skill set, but what she really had was she had that fire in her belly, that passion for art, and that passion to create a successful career as an artist. She also had an amazing work ethic, and she had just a hunger to learn, so that willingness and ability to learn. So the other piece with the flowers was about 5 months later, and there'd been a huge improvement in her work. She actually entered this piece into a juried show, and it won the People's Choice Award. Now, right around this time as well, I told her that social media nowadays is a huge part of an artist's career, and we sat down and developed a social media strategy. So she started her Instagram account at this time with 0. And you can tell from these posts here, again, I'm going to move out of the way. She was very creative with the way that she photographed her artwork and photographed herself with her artwork. And her skill level was getting better and better and better. Now, I think I'm pretty good at social media for an old guy, but she is phenomenal at social media. So let's fast forward to now. So this is just 4 years later. She has over 200,000 followers on Instagram. Now, in her very first year of pursuing her career as an artist, she made $30,000. Remember, for me, that didn't happen until my 5th year. She's currently living in Vienna. She's shipping her work around the world, and a same size piece of Brooks now sells for more than the same size piece of mine. And that's what she's been able to do in 4 years. Now, is it because she was gifted and she had some amazing talent? No. It's because she worked really hard, but she did the things that were important for her to do at that time. It's taken me 21 years to get where I am, and I'm thrilled with what has happened in my life. But I had no idea what I was doing most of the time. I look back and I spent a lot of time wasting energy in areas that really weren't important, going down dead ends. And the difference with Brooke is taking everything that I've learned, I was able to focus her attention and her effort at the right place at the right time, and the results have been amazing. So I am so thankful that I offered to mentor her and that I actually filmed the process. Because if I didn't have it on film, I think you wouldn't believe it. You can actually watch this entire journey of her from a scared kid who's just told her parents that, thank you for the education, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be an artist, to now where she is just living the dream at a level that is unbelievable. And then we come to 2019. So for me, that was the year of the thyroid from hell. It turns out I have grave disease. I developed this disease which attacks your thyroid. And I had a lot of very serious health problems for the entire year 2019. I almost died twice. And both times I was in the hospital lying on the gurney. Sorry, I get a little choked up here. I was lying on the gurney and actually was aware of the fact that this might be it for me. This might be my last few minutes here on Earth. And when that happens, you really do a lot of deep thinking. And the one thing I was happy about, I was happy that I had chased my dream and that I had achieved the level of success that I had. I had no thoughts that there's more paintings I want to paint. I was, very sad about the fact that, I knew this would have been very hard on my wife and my boys if this was my time. But I really didn't have any regrets. And I got to tell you, that's a great feeling because we're all going to be there one day. You don't want to look back and say, I wish I had of, or I wish I would have done this or done that. But I did have one regret both times. And it was that while I felt really pleased about the amount of time and effort I had put into putting all of that content up on YouTube to help other artists, I felt so thrilled with how much I'd helped Brooke. And I have got a lot of emails from artists over the years about how much they appreciate the content I put up and how much it's helped them. But I also realized I had achieved nowhere near the impact that I really wanted to achieve. That it was really only a tiny percentage of aspiring artists who had even heard of me. And so I made a commitment to myself that if I got through this and if I got back healthy again, that my new mission on Earth was going to be to spread the message of what I know about creating a successful living as an artist, because I want to have the impact of doing what I did for Brooke to thousands of artists at scale. And I also realized the only way that I could do that is if I made this the focus of my business. Up until now, I'd been doing it in my spare time and doing it for free. And again, had more impact than probably most, but nowhere the degree of impact that I really wanted to have. And so over this past year, as I've got back to normal health, I decided I've made the switch in my career. I'm no longer painting. I actually haven't painted in about 5 months now. My main focus is to become a teacher and to teach what I have learned because I want to change lives. And the course right now that I'm just releasing and the one I'm that I know is going to have the most impact of probably anything I do here during my life. It is about making a decent living as a full-time artist. It's drawing on all 21 years of my experience. And again, the question is, do I have something to offer? Well, I think from Brooke's experience and what I've done, I think I do. But I'm always the type of person that likes to dip my baby toe in first. So in January, I actually had a live class. So I spent several months writing the content. I had a live class with about 10 people who paid to come for the day. And I just presented it live. It was basically reading my notes. It was a horrible presentation, but the people stayed for 3 hours after class to ask me questions. So I knew the content was very valuable, but I also knew I had to find a way to deliver it that was going to be engaging, that wasn't going to put people to sleep, that wasn't going to be boring. And so we went about trying to figure out how to do that. Well, I've already filmed the entire course twice. Each time, after filming it and doing all we could in post-production to kind of jazz it up, just saying, no, this doesn't work. It's not engaging enough. We need to try something different. We did it again a second time, didn't work. And that's when I thought, okay, I am not going to start filming this course again until I know how I'm going to do it. And so just over a month ago, I did a live webinar on Zoom with this type of effect, with a keynote presentation, with me green screened in front of it. And we had 80 paying students. It was a 3-hour presentation with what was supposed to be a 1-hour Q&A. It went on to a 3-hour Q&A, and the response that I got was overwhelming. And so I realized, okay, this is the type of presentation that I want to do, using the keynotes to kind of keep me on track, but still allowing me to kind of ad lib, as well as adding some kind of visual interest. And then I was ready. It's like, okay, I know how I want to film the course. So we spent several weeks filming, and on December 11th, we released the beta version of the course. Now, what I've decided to do, and this is through reading a lot of stuff online, is rather than creating the entire course again and then deciding if there's things we can do to improve it, we're going to release it as a beta version. And so that means right now we have 3 modules completed. And we'll be looking for feedback for students, from students, about things that we can do to make it more engaging or things that we can do to improve it. Now, the regular cost of this course is going to be $895. But for right now, for the beta version, we're releasing it for $495 because of the fact that it's not fully completed. We'll be filming and uploading new modules every week until it's completed. But if you act right now, you're also going to get absolutely free the recording of the Business of Being an Artist webinar. So we're actually charging $89 for that. You'll get that free. So that's a 3-hour webinar as well as 3 hours of Q&A about the business of being an artist. You'll also get my mini course on color and composition. Now that's the little thumbnails that are behind my head right here. That's a 12 separate video lesson course, and it's all done with demonstrations on paper. It is not me talking in front of a keynote presentation. That's over 3 hours about everything I've learned about color and composition, which is the most important element in any painting, I believe. And that's a $79 value. And then we're also going to include a free 6-month subscription to my Hungry Artist community. So that's $174 value. And one of the things that I found was a huge influence in my life was being on the board of the Canadian Society of Painters and Watercolor for almost 10 years, and actually serving as vice president for 2 years and president. That associating with other successful artists and other people who are on this journey, I found to be so, so important. First of all, to kind of encourage me, but to learn from other people who are a little bit ahead of you, for people who are going through the same thing as you are. Not everybody has the ability to kind of get elected to a society where they get to actually rub shoulders with so many successful artists like I did. Well, I'm going to create that community. It's going to be a closed online community with other artists that are on that journey. And it's also going to feature regular live Zoom webinars with me where I'll do Q&A sessions, and where I'll also do critiques, and I'll also create and post exclusive content for that community. So that's a $1,237 value for $495. And you'll only get that offer until December 31st. Again, because this is a beta version, and because I'm really anxious and eager to get people involved in this right away, that is why we are offering it such a discount and bundling the other products with it. The one thing I can guarantee you is once the end of December comes here, you will never see this offer at this price again. I feel almost like I'm giving away the course, but that's okay because I want to get people in this, and I want to have more proof of my concept. I don't want just one Brooke Cormier out there. I want 20 or 30 out there 1, 2, 3 years from now. So that's the offer. The one thing I can tell you is the next 5 or 10 years are going to go by whether you take any action now or not. But the one question I'll ask you is, in 5 years or 10 years, do you want to be living your dream, or do you still want to be dreaming about the life that you would like to have? And a couple other questions to ask yourself is, why not me? Why not you? And if not now, when? So how do you access my course? Well, you can go to my new Tim Packer Art Academy. That's at www.timpackerartacademy.mykajabi.com, or you can go to my website, www.timpacker.com, and you'll see information on the homepage there. You can click on to link to my online art academy, or you can go to any of my social media. So that's TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. All of that is at Tim Packer Fine Arts. So that's how you can find me. And if you want to follow me on social media, I encourage you to do so. I answer every single comment on all of my social media. At least I've been able to up till now. And I intend on doing that going forward. So if you do have questions or comments, put them in there and I'd be happy to answer them for you.
I hope you've learned just a little bit here, and if you had almost given up on that dream of becoming a successful artist, I hope maybe I've convinced you not to put that dream on the shelf yet. Now, if you want to take my course, and if you've got the money to do so, I really highly recommend it. I know you will get a lot of value out of it. But before you do that, if you don't know who I am and you don't necessarily trust me, I've got a ton of free content up on my YouTube video. I've got over 100 videos up there, mostly focused at sharing what I've learned with aspiring artists. You can also watch the entire mentorship program with me and Brooke Cormier. You can follow her entire progress. You can also see the first of my podcasts where I've interviewed her, where we kind of go over from the very beginning when I first started mentoring her 4 years ago to the point now where she's living her dream in Vienna, shipping her work all over the world, and her paintings actually sell for more than mine. So even if you don't take my course, please go to my YouTube channel. There's a ton of content there that I know you will find helpful. But if you do decide to take the course, then I look forward to seeing you in the Hungry Artist community. I'm Tim Packer, and I thank you for your time.